Handley coming to you with 100,000 watts of pure love. Today I'm going to present to you the Boolean blog for the spring of 2012. Also in it, I'm going to give some advice to Bibi Netanyahu for his appearance or speech at the U.S. AIPAC convention. First, let me give you a little personal background to encourage you in your future. At the first college I attended out of 11, I received my B.S. in Industrial Engineering. At the same time, I also received the annual Most Worthless Senior Award. I won the award unanimously with the vote of all fraternities, plus the independents, and that was the first time for a unanimous vote on that campus in all the years they'd done this, evidently due to a lack of competition commensurate with my particular experiences. But the great good news is that 4 years later, the Mashiach of Israel made me worthy when I was reading in my room at night from the prophet Isaiah, where it said, "Come now and let us reason together, says the Lord. Though your sins are like scarlet, they shall be white as snow. Though they be red like crimson, they shall be as wool." You can read that in the Tanakh in the book of Isaiah, chapter 1, verse 18. I shared this experience with you because when you are finished listening or reading this blog, you will probably wonder if there's any hope left for planet Earth. My friend, there's always hope left if you know the truth. Here are some areas we will traverse in this and future blogs. The largest wealth redistribution in history, Obama's Muslim Brotherhood and Syrian Sisterhood, Purim 2012, Bibi's major decision, defend or deny, OWS, Occupy World Streets. No, I didn't make a mistake, not Occupy Wall Street. Networking with the opposite sex in the end times, Nephilim, UFO abductions, and neo-eschatology. That will be covered in a future blog. And energy, bonding element for the kings of the East. And that also will be covered in a future blog. This Boolean blog for the spring of 2012 is actually an insert into my previous Boolean blog for 2011 and 2012 titled Trends, Times, and Tribulation. In the summer of 2011, I predicted the following. For the rest of this decade, technology will be the predominant driver both as the underpinning and centroid of influence of, number one, the economy, number two, the eco-protective planet model with green-friendly innovation and regulation, and number three, terrorism. Concerning employment, the three major safe zones in the Western world will be number one, healthcare, number two, government, including the military and police forces, and number three, education. The Boolean-centric model pictured in the blog was purposely not shown as a peripheral symmetry circumscribing technology because, as represented visually, the three driven modules are paradoxically both, number one, supported and dependent upon the driving force of technology, and two, organically developed as an outgrowth child of technology. Take a look at that diagram model in the blog and you'll see what I'm talking about more clearly. Prediction number one. In the USA, the winner of the November 6, 2012 presidential election will be the one who most effectively convinces the populace that he or she can tackle the three subdomains that are described in the Boolean model: economy, green, and terrorism, while effectively guaranteeing the protection, intellectual privacy, and practice of the technology sectors of public, political, and professional modules of society. The Achilles heel, unknown by the frontrunners at the time that I predicted this in the middle of 2011, and still seemingly unknown by frontrunners in the election, will prove to be cyberspace and the promise by the winning contender to protect and maintain the freedom of use of the cyberspace vis-a-vis the Internet for the following elements of USA society: citizenry, industry, education, healthcare, and government. And to protect these elements from outside international world powers and institutions, in other words, the UN, rogue nations, and intellectual pirates. Prediction number two that I gave. The contender for the U.S. presidency who wins the election will also be the one who most convincingly promises to unwaveringly help and defend Israel. However, there is a caveat. If that person later turns their back on Israel and does not keep their promise, the USA will suffer dire judgment. Also, that president will suffer manifest judgment from God personally. Only recently has there been another person who agrees with my Achilles heel prediction concerning the Internet Cyberspace Security Freedom Alert and its effect upon the 2012 presidential election, and that happens to be Gerald Celente of the Trends Research Institute. This spring 2012 blog that I'm presenting now is actually an insert for my 2011-2012 Boolean blog that I presented in mid-2011. I say insert because the basic tenets of the 2011-2012 blog are as current as ever. This insert is additional information. Now let's cover largest wealth redistribution in history. The greatest tax increase ever, probably over $300 billion, that's billion with a B, is about to be foisted on the American people by Barack Hussein Obama through cap-and-trade energy regulations. It will be the largest socialist redistribution of wealth in the history of the world brought about by emissions regulations. When Obama's green job czar, Van Jones, was removed after the public found out he was an avowed communist, Obama shifted gears in the background to bring the same objectives to pass. For further study, I recommend you study the new global currency at the University of Excellence website to learn more about Van Jones' hidden agenda. Also study USA, Past and Future. The links for those are in the show notes of this podcast. And for specific information on how Obama wants to use global warming and energy regulations to take your money, that is, if you're a citizen of the United States, and redistribute it to other individuals as well as other countries, read the book, The Greatest Hoax, How the Global Warming Conspiracy Threatens Your Future. Now let's discuss Obama's Muslim Brotherhood and Syrian Sisterhood. The Syrian dilemma is not really a dilemma. Syria is Iran's key play against Israel, providing not only arms for Hezbollah, but a strategic weapons depot for attack against Israel. Russia helps Syria to earn favor with Iran and oil largesse. Plus, Iran's promise to hold back Islamic Muslim terrorism inside Russian territory, which the Russians will find out is only temporary at some time in the future. Thousands of people have been injured or killed by Syria's leader Assad, way worse than the atrocities in Libya. However, instead of going in to help the thousands of injured people in Syria by direct attack on Damascus, the U.S. president proffers humanitarian routes of escape if Assad agrees. This safe haven plan of humanitarian routes of aid and rescue, while proposing to help the wounded, at the same time gives the murderer ruler Assad international immunity for his crimes, and it gives Obama some measure of accolades for a re-election campaign. President Obama has been backpedaling out of helping Israel several times, while at the same time helping Iran gain time in the enrichment of uranium and building a potential nuclear arsenal. If you consistently study my blog podcast on Podcast Satellite, The Voice of Israel, you will see that since 2006 I have been warning Israel and its leaders not to depend upon Obama, the UN, the EU, or NATO for help against Iran, and that the U.S. would just tie up time giving Iran the advantage to further their nuclear ambitions. Also see what I said in August 2008 about Obama, Syria, and Israel. The link for that is in the show notes of this podcast. Benjamin Netanyahu is in agreement with Saudi rulers in his disagreement to big power policies of the U.S. for handling the Assad regime in Syria. Obama acts as though he's shocked by the Syrian ruler's violence against his own people, but the U.S. president will not initiate steps for his removal. while Moscow showers arms and intelligence on the Syrian despot to preserve him from his enemies. Obama is afraid to take steps against the Syrian leader slaughtering people because of the coming U.S. election, while Russia showers the Syrian leadership with arms and intel to gain favor with Iran and secure a footprint in the Middle East. Now let's discuss Purim 2012 and Bibi's major decision to defend or to deny. Israel and Bibi's government in particular have been visited by U.S. diplomats to the point of embarrassment in recent days. One of Solomon's proverbs says, "Withdraw your foot from your neighbor's house, lest he grow weary of you, and so hate you." Proverbs 25:17. The USA leaders, Obama in the forefront, not the American populace, are afraid of Israel attacking Iran. Excuses range from Iran will react with attacks on U.S. overseas bases and personnel. Number 2, Obama may have to respond with war. And 3, this would mean another backpedal from Obama's campaign promises in 2008. However, the real reason is threefold. Number 1, Obama is not the friend of Israel. Number 2, Obama is, from his background, pro-Islamic. And number 3, Obama does not want to jeopardize his chances of winning a re-election, regardless of how many of our friends are killed or injured. Regardless of how many of our friends are killed or injured by an attack from Iran. Regardless of how many of our friends in Israel or in the United States are killed from nuclear or terrorist attacks from Iran-based headquarters. See my prophecy of June 18, 2009 concerning Obama and Israel, titled Bibi, Babylon, and Bama, Land for Peace, Petra, and Prophecy. Netanyahu holds White House talks with Obama on March 5, 2012. Also, they will both speak at separate times to AIPAC, the American Israel Public Affairs Committee, on March 4th. Unless Netanyahu holds his cards tightly to his chest before laying down his royal flush, he's going to be tricked by the USA leader. A lot depends upon who speaks first at AIPAC. However, even if Netanyahu speaks first, which gives Obama a chance to counter, he must defend Israel's right to not only exist, but to defend herself. My advice to Benjamin Netanyahu at AIPAC is this: let history and the Tanakh be your guide. Defend Israel and Jews everywhere. Defend freedom everywhere, and speak from your heart. Now, the Jewish holiday Purim begins in the evening of Wednesday, March 7, 2012, and ends on the evening of Thursday, March 8, 2012. That is the 14th of the Hebrew month Adar. Purim in 2012 occurs in between the March 5th meeting of Netanyahu and Obama and the March 8th date selected by the FBI to shut down Internet servers still infected with the notorious DNS changer Trojan virus. As of the 1st of February, the DNS changer Trojan was still active on computers at half of Fortune 500 companies, as well as on PCs at 50% of federal government agencies. Although not probable, this shutdown could be critical and dangerous for both the USA and Israel, as it could affect or be used concurrently with cyber hacking to deter or cause confusion among military, first responder, and emergency communications. Also, I would challenge you to pray for protection for Israel during Purim. By the way, for a full account of Purim and its history, read the book of Esther in the Tanakh, or the Hebrew Old Testament. You may also read my study on Esther and Purim at Israel, Replacement Time in Leadership, Preparing for War with Iran. And the link for that is in the show notes of this podcast. Now let me cover OWS, Occupy World Streets. No, we did not make a mistake. Occupy Wall Street has mutated. OWS has duplicated into larger, more frequent, and geographically diverse demonstrations. And it is not going to slow down. It may even turn out in the USA to be a feeder for the National Defense Authorization Act of 2012 signed by President Obama. This act just went into effect on March 1st. It is the first time since the Civil War that the military can be used for law enforcement. The act includes provisions that would allow for the indefinite detention of American citizens without any recourse to legal interventions or civil rights if accused of a belligerent act or any terror-related offense. The term belligerent act could be a broad term, the interpretation of which would be highly subjective. Also, the act seems to be in direct opposition to the Bill of Rights. Several legislators are attempting to clean up the terminology and provisions of this act. If not accomplished, it could be a milestone against free speech and the right to assembly by USA citizens. As for the worldwide implications of the mutating OWS movement, you may begin to see more chaos and rioting with severe injuries on both sides, especially when fueled by economic conditions. Read my specific regional prophecy that I gave in 2009 at the University of Excellence. You can see the show notes for that in this podcast. Now let's discuss networking with the opposite sex in the end times. Open marriage and deviant sexual behavior are just one of the end time signs that will increase. Check out trumpet number 6 at Revelation and the End Times in the University of Excellence website. I placed a link for this in the show notes. Here are practices that will increase as time progresses. Murder, drugs, which can be an association with witchcraft, fornication and sexual immorality, stealing, demon worship, and some may unknowingly commit demon worship, idol worship. However, in this blog insert for spring of 2012, when I discuss in the section on networking with the opposite sex in the end times, I'm not talking about networking for deviant sex. What I'm talking about is business, networking, and sex. That's the title of a book that's out that will give you some tremendous information. And I've placed a show note in the podcast where you can read a sample chapter of that. If you want to be more productive, make more money, and negotiate more successfully in the coming years, then you're going to have to learn how the other sex, other meaning the opposite gender, thinks. Over a 4-year period, 25,000 people participated in this study. Some of the key issues discovered are as follows. For men are transactional, not relational. Men network more often, but seem to be less satisfied with their results. Men believe that self-improvement comes from doing it on their own, not learning from others. Men build credibility by stating their credentials, contacts, and successes. While women are different. Women are all about the relationship, not the transaction. Women network less often, but network longer and are more satisfied with their results. Women believe self-improvement comes from a variety of sources, and doing it themselves is not one of them. And finally, women build credibility by getting to know another person's character, family, and personal issues. Men and women see things differently when it comes to relationship building and communication in both the work and the non-work environment. Learn to improve in every area of your life as things will become more competitive in the future. And might I add, this may include your marriage. We read in the Brit Hadashah, the Hebrew New Testament, in the book of 2 Peter, chapter 1, verse 5, the following. And besides this, giving all diligence, add to your faith virtue, and to virtue knowledge. My friend, I trust this spring 2012 blog insert has given you something to think and pray about. What you may not have realized already is that the topics covered, plus the two I'm going to cover in future blogs, are key sectors for Boolean logic commonalities in relation to trends and issues. This is the primary purpose of the University of Excellence, and you may read those purposes and goals and the mission on the University of Excellence homepage. Note, we purposely omitted in this blog insert the trends of entertainment and style, as not critical to the objectives of this presentation. Also, the Boolean commonalities of economics, green, and technology were not included in this insert, as they're already included and are still current in the 2011-2012 blog, of which this blog is an insert. So to be covered in the future will be the following: Nephilim, UFO abductions and neo-eschatology, and energy, bonding element for the kings of the East. Remember, my friend, there's always hope if you know the truth. This has been your friend, Prince Handley, coming to you with 100,000 watts of pure, healing, miracle-working love. Baruch haba B'Shem Adonai.